So I do know that the survey is posted on the website. I know it was tweeted by the district, and I believe Mr. Ferry is sending it out, or sent it out to the newspapers. Do you know, Dr. Radigan?
I think that is correct, Mrs. Gerald, but I'm going to check with him tomorrow.
Okay. So there are efforts being made to get it out to the community in as many different ways as possible. And you know, sending it the email to parents was one of the ways. So we will do our best to get it out there. And so if anybody, you know, is interested, it is on the district website. So if you didn't get an email, everyone is welcome to go to the district website. All right, we are going to move on to the...
May I ask a real quick question?
No, if you want to ask a question at the end, I'll be happy to have it. But you know, I just wanted to make that comment now, and if you have another question about it at the end, I'd be happy, you know, see if we can answer it then. All right. The first agenda item is Algebra I. Mr. O'Boyle.
Good evening, everyone. The math
Turn your
department.
mic on, please.
Good evening, everyone. The math department would like to continue our McGraw-Hill series to include Algebra I. Just to give some context for those of you who weren't here last year, for this current school year, we just instituted McGraw-Hill's Course 1 at the 6th grade level, Course 2, McGraw-Hill's Course 2 at the 7th grade level, and also McGraw-Hill's Accelerated Mathematics program, also at the 7th grade level, and that is actually our pre-algebra course. If we bring in Algebra I, it would not only be for our 9th and 10th graders at the high school, but it would also be for our single accelerated students at the 8th grade level, and also our double accelerated students at the 7th grade level. The cost of this would be approximately $56,000, and that is for a 6-year deal. So we're talking approximately $9,400 per year over the next 6 years.
Were you about to share something else, or that was...
No, that's
all
it.
right. Yeah, we were waiting. We didn't know if you were pulling something up. So, all right, questions?
So you're using the McGraw-Hill for 6th grade right now, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you have any kind of an update for us on how that has been going?
Sure. It's been an interesting process because we're definitely going through growing pains. It's definitely a different way of teaching 6th grade math and 7th grade math for that matter. There's a lot more emphasis being put on problem solving and true understanding of the mathematical concepts. That's pretty much the biggest reason that we went in this direction.
Just to quickly piggyback on that, our elementary math program, Everyday Math 4 really has the same emphasis with rigor and problem solving, and our elementary students are going to be more prepared as they move into middle school than the current group is. So while the elementary teachers have had a good amount of professional development and kind of taken ownership of that, our 6th grade teachers and our 7th grade teachers really are in the first year of understanding that type of teaching and learning, which is what Mr. O'Boyle is saying. I just wanted to make the quick connection that the elementary students will already be taught that way. So over time, it will be seamless.
Have the 6th grade teachers gotten professional development on the...
Yes, we have. We did 2 days over the summer, and we have McGraw-Hill coming in. Well, it was supposed to be this Thursday, but we just had to cancel that because of the parade. But they will be coming in again for more development. We've also had our own sessions where we've had the sixth grade teachers come up to the high school, and we have spent a day just looking at where we are, at this time frame, looking at the curriculum and saying to ourselves, where are we going to go from here? How long is it going to take us, just to make sure that during this first year that we get through what we need to get through curriculum-wise. We thought that would be a struggle, and it has been. But like I said, nothing that we didn't foresee. It's not only the students getting used to the way this is being taught, but also our teachers. This is definitely a change for them.
Other questions? So are you saying the old math was more aligned to what we were doing in the elementary school, but now that we changed it to the new everyday math program, it's changing the way they're learning in the elementary school, and this new McGraw-Hill lines up better to that than the old everyday math? Is that what you're saying? Do you want me to?
No, go right ahead.
That is true, and also what was equally important is that this curriculum at the middle school now is aligned to the standards, which it wasn't. So there's twofold. It was relevance, rigor, and alignment to the standards. So now we have that at the middle level, and Mr. Hoyle's talking about now moving on to Algebra I within the same program. So looking at how the sixth graders did this year compared to last year, are you saying that they're not doing as well because they're struggling because this is much more difficult than what they're used to, and they're not as prepared for the sixth grade, this newer version of the sixth grade math? I think I was making the comment that as elementary students are exposed to the Everyday Math 4 program, that will be the way they think and learn, which is a natural progression into this middle school program. This current sixth grade class, not all of those students from fifth grade were exposed to Everyday Math 4, so we're not expecting any overnight successes. What we're talking about is long-term. So there will be a connection with the way the programs are designed. They're aligned to the curriculum, and we will not be able to give you hard data on the effect that it has in the first year. But we certainly expect, first of all, the curriculum is aligned to the standards. So the students are being taught the eligible content, which that is our responsibility to do. So that's in place. And it really is exciting in terms of the way the students are taught math in terms of problem solving. And they've always been taught problem solving, so I'm not saying they didn't. But it is a different way of thinking. So that is what I'm trying to say. I guess looking at the data then from last year compared to this year, are our students doing better this year, or were they doing better last year?
We don't have data for this year yet.
In terms of which assessments?
Our assessments, like our assessments that we do.
Okay,
I don't
so-
mean the state assessments.
Right, because we haven't gotten there yet. They're benchmarks in the new assessment. So you can't measure that yet, because this is new, so you can't, we would be measuring apples to oranges. These have assessments built in, if you wanted to talk about that.
That's correct. Yeah, right now, initially we thought we would do 4 benchmarks, but after the first quarter, we thought it would be better to just make sure that we did the first 2 benchmarks well, and then moved on to the following year. And the whole idea was that this was kind of a long approach to say, infusing more rigor, more relevance, getting a truer understanding of concepts was something that I think we all would agree are necessary parts of a math program that need to be emphasized. So that's really where we're headed. But as far as overnight success, I'm not sure we'll see overnight success, but I certainly believe that as we progress through the next couple of years and our teachers and students get used to the way things are being taught, we will see more success than we have.
The program, Was that what some of the students had in grass? Remember, they had it
Yes.
piloted, and so, I know it's very early, but, I mean, could you peek at maybe the sixth graders that came to sixth grade from grass and compare them, or no?
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, yes, we could do that. That would be something I'd certainly have to get back to you on, though.
Oh, well, yeah.
I had a question just about the textbooks, and then you mentioned the online resources, which in the write-up, and you say, do the online resources expire after 6 years? It's like a 6-year.
That's correct.
Okay. And you talked about the cost of the program per year. So do we pay per year, or do we pay the one-time upfront cost?
No, it would be one time upfront, yes.
Okay. And will the students, will the online resources, will it be an online textbook as well, so they won't really need the textbook, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. What I proposed here is essentially 600, we're going to have approximately 600 kids in Algebra I next year at the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade levels. So we have 600 online subscriptions and 300 textbooks. And the way I got the 300 textbooks, I'm approximating we're going to have about 10 teachers teaching Algebra I next year throughout those 4 grade levels, and to give them each a classroom set.
And so then the kids will be required, then they'll be using their computers
That's correct.
at home. How will that work if the 7th and 8th graders don't have a computer at home? Then they get to take home a textbook?
That's correct.
Okay. So this is for, so this actually just has, so I don't understand the, because you have the cost of the text, but then you don't have the cost of the online license.
Yeah, I could have worded that a little bit better. The $105.99, that is the online product and the textbook together.
Okay.
So online, we have a total of 600, and then textbooks alone would be 300.
No, so the first one is the online plus the textbook, and then the second one is just the online resource license.
That's correct.
Right,
yes.
okay, all right, that makes sense.
I'm sorry, I just want to go back to one thing. You were saying it's like comparing apples and oranges, but can't you, the Linkit data, I thought you could pool the data in different ways so that you can look at each concept to see, are they grasping this concept? Or, are they more successful in grasping this concept now versus last year? They seem to be really struggling with this concept. I guess I'm just trying to see, if we're going to be purchasing more curriculum, kind of seeing, is it working? Is it doing what we're expecting it to do? Is it helping our kids?
So Linkit is an analytics system. It's a warehouse where the benchmarks that we're currently using, that is downloaded into that system, and it is a robust system, and you can take a look at all the things that you're talking about. It breaks it down even into the skill level, so that you'd be able to see which students in your class were struggling with which concepts, and then you'd be able to group them. So I think that's what you're talking about. Yes, then the system does do that. In terms...
Can I say something, Kev?
Sure.
Just to make it clear, as far as benchmarks go, I made a decision with the benchmarks not to do the 6th and 7th grade Linkit benchmarks this year because we were doing the McGraw-Hill benchmarks. So we wouldn't have that data from this, from the same assessment. And that was made more from a teacher standpoint. We only have so many days in a year, and we have all the standardized tests that we have. We didn't want to inundate them with other multiple testing dates without taking something out.
But can't we also scan those tests in the same way so that you have that data? I thought the whole benefit that you had with Linkit is that you can analyze the same data. You can pull apart the data in the same exact ways no matter what test you're putting in there. So you could pull his tests. You're right, it'd be silly to do both tests, right? But if those tests are better, couldn't we pool that data and compare it the same way by skill and see if they're learning more of those skills?
Yes,
We
yes,
can do that.
that's exactly what the system does. It's not limited to Linkit per se benchmarks. It isn't limited at all. You upload it, and Diane's department helps us, and you put whichever test data you want in there. And then you pull it down and you can do those comparisons. Yes.
I guess I'm just saying, we have our teachers and our kids doing all of this stuff. We have all that information, we might as well use it, right?
Yes, and we do. So I want to help you understand that we do that. You know, we have gotten better and better at using that particular system to help us analyze the data at all levels. So the answer to the question is, yes, you can do that. Yes, teachers can use that to create instructional groups. And yes, you can put in whichever data that you want to take a look and triangulate in any which way you would like.
I guess what I'm saying is, can't the administration compare those skills then from last year to this year? Can we do that?
You can compare skill development, yes, you can. And we will be looking at that. This year was the year one of implementation at the middle school, and what was essential for everyone was to make sure that teachers got what teachers needed in terms of professional development to be comfortable implementing it. You know, it's a year of, I need to learn that and get comfortable with that, right? So that's what we're really focusing on. Are we looking at data? Absolutely we are. That's what the benchmarks are for. At department meetings, all the supervisors are doing that. They're pulling out the data. We have CDT data. We're looking at that. We're matching that with skills. We're seeing if we're aligned to the eligible content, which students have not mastered those skills, which students have, and we move on. So we're rich with data analysis. So yes, we do that. We are doing that. We cannot tell you right now. We did 8 years worth of a program, and now we have this half a year implementation. I cannot definitively say, and this made all the difference. Do we believe it absolutely will? There's no question, because you had to have it aligned to the standards, and it now is. So now in Linkit, you can look at the standards. It is a very robust system. You can look at all the standards and the skills, and yes, we do that, and we will continue to do that. And over time, we'll be able to come and give you more absolute data on it.
Okay, all right, so this will be, there'll be a vote at the next meeting, right? Part of the program improvements. Everyone's fine with moving this to the board meeting? Okay, all right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Boyle. All right, next is Number World's expansion, IST proposal, Mrs. Coleza.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me back again. So I'm here tonight to talk about expanding our Number Worlds program for instructional support. Right now, we piloted it this year. We purchased single-year licenses for our IST teachers. So we have 7 IST teachers, 1 in each elementary building. And they're using it as a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 level support for math for students who need additional math support but are not, they don't have IEP, so that they're not special ed students. The feedback that we've been getting from the teachers has been very positive. Prior to having Number Worlds, we did not have a consistent resource that each teacher was able to use district-wide. We had some resources that were in common, but there wasn't a standard resource that we were using. Moreover, we didn't have a resource that was aligned to standards, or one that matched our Everyday Math 4 program in rigor. And Number Worlds is one of a handful of research-based intervention programs which have statistically been shown to improve students' not just their ability for problem solving, but their number sense. And underlying number sense is really the key to being successful as they move on to upper level math courses. So it's a fairly simple proposal. It really consists of just purchasing a 6-year license for each of our 7 teachers. Those licenses are about $210, so it comes out to be a little over $1,400 for licenses for all 7 teachers, for all 7 buildings, for 6 years. There are no print materials that are required. All of the materials are accessible because it's web-based, and once the teachers have the licenses, they can get not only the teacher materials, but they can get the student materials as well. We also have student licenses that we currently are using. We don't need to purchase more of them because we did purchase enough of them that they will last us through next year and probably the following year. That would be considered a consumable resource, just like a workbook would be. So that would be something that would just be part of an ongoing budget cycle, not a program improvement proposal. And then the additional amount that's in this proposal is for Memmios for those 7 teachers in the buildings. The Number Worlds component has a very rich resource of digital tools, digital manipulatives, and we're finding that in order for teachers to get the most benefit out of those, they need to be able to have some type of interactive medium to do that with, and that's what the Memmio would serve. And as far as professional development is concerned, our IST teachers have been involved through their pathway this year, and all of their pathway sessions have been devoted to using Number Worlds both as a tier 2 level resource, both in pull-out services as well as providing resources to classroom teachers when they're doing intervention in small groups. So we're really getting 2 ways to use it as a support resource, both in the classroom when they're doing small group work, when they're doing intervention time, such as power hours or WIN, and then also as a primary resource for pull-out services by the IST teacher. Questions?
Can you explain what the Memmios are?
Memmios are, it's like the old, well, not the old, it's similar to a whiteboard, except it doesn't take up the real estate. It's a portable device, so it allows for interactivity. Both the teacher and the students can come up and write on it and manipulate, like if they're using
Like the smart board.
number grids, or if they're using 10 frames or cubes, they can go up and actually manipulate them on the screen. So it has that interactive capability.
But it's smaller, so.
Oh, yeah.
It's smaller, so they can take it to the room.
It's portable,
and
yeah. It's
record it.
about this wide and about this long, and it goes right up on the board, so it's very, it can be, it has the capability of being portable. But we expect that because the IST teachers have a designated room, that it would be used in that room.
So Number Worlds is the program that you started piloting because part of the reason was our kids that are in special ed, their curriculum was not as closely aligned to the kids in the general ed classroom. And so this was so that they could be more inclusive, correct? Wasn't that kind of the
Yeah,
point, is
well,
to
it
be
was-
able to keep them more in line so they can?
It was to match, well, what they were using, and in fact, what is still being used, we're piloting it in learning support at both Guth and Grass. And in the other buildings that are not using Number Worlds, their primary resource for replacement instruction is Saxon Math. And Saxon Math is not aligned to standards, nor does it reflect the rigor that the general ed students are seeing in the regular classroom. So our concern was to provide a resource that matched what was going on in the general ed classroom in terms of expectations that are related to Common Core, and provide greater opportunity for students to possibly transition back to the general ed classroom. So that's a separate component. That's a main or primary resource for learning support in the 2 buildings that we're piloting it in. What I'm talking about tonight, we're also using it as an intervention resource. So the IST teachers can use the curriculum-based assessments and benchmarks that they're taking in the general ed classroom and identifying which standards and skills students need support with, and then matching that up to specific lessons and number worlds that they can use to either pre-teach or reteach or just provide additional practice at a more scaffolded level to students who need additional support beyond what the teachers be able to provide in the regular ed classroom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The only other thing I just wanted to add is that the district had sent out a letter to all of the elementary schools saying we're not purchasing Memmios, and now we're purchasing Memmios. So,
We put Memmios on, at the elementary level. We put Memmios on what all PTAs, PTGs, PTOs could purchase. That wasn't something that we were going across the board and putting in all classrooms, so they are able to purchase those for schools. It wasn't that, and I believe this was the time that we were looking at iPads. And then we worked with the PTGs to say, these are the things that you can purchase, right? Is that what you're referring to? And Memmios was one of them.
right, because we said we weren't going to purchase them, so that way we didn't end up in a situation where this school has 15 and this school has 3 and that whole situation. So I just wanted to point that out. I mean, I'm fine. I think they're very useful, but I'm just saying that that was something that we had said. And
Well, I think the difference is that, can you hear me, is this on? I think the difference is that
The preference is for Memmios that are purchased to be purpose-driven. So these have a purpose that are going to be used within that classroom as opposed, and it's equitable because all 7 buildings would get it, as opposed to PTO groups purchasing them. That's where you get some inequitability, where one building might have them in every classroom and another building might have them in fewer classrooms.
well, right, but it's the same thing as the iPads, right? Because you're still using those for purposes.
Right.
All right. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to note that I happened to be in Guth several months ago and talked to the IST teacher, one of the classroom teachers who were piloting this program, and they were extremely enthusiastic at that point. That was only 2+ months into the pilot, but they certainly spoke highly of it, so
Well,
if that's an endorsement,
Thank
I
you.
think that it's a good one.
Well, the teachers that are piloting it are doing a tremendous job because it is very different, and it's they've really risen to the occasion because it's a different way to teach the kids that are in learning support, and I think it requires a great deal more from the teacher because a lot of it is personalized to a great degree based on the number sense that kids are coming in with. And I will say that one of the most frequent comments I heard is teachers weren't aware of some of the underlying deficits in kids' number sense that they're coming in with. Because kids may be able to memorize algorithms and procedures, but without that foundational understanding of numbers and their relationships to each other and the ability to deconstruct numbers and look at commonalities and relationships, without that foundation, once they get to higher levels of math, that's where they're going to struggle. And I think this program really identifies where the problems are and works on building up their foundational understanding so that they're able to do higher level math.
So they've been doing it for only since the beginning of this year?
The IST teachers have, yes.
And do you have a plan for assessing, that's what my question was, how many hours a week does the typical student receive in this?
It varies. It varies depending on the scheduling at the elementary building. Scheduling, as I'm sure you've heard or will be hearing about, is problematic, and that really drives everything. So when those IST teachers are able to meet with those small groups is really dependent on the building schedule. So it does vary depending on from building to building. And our principals really are the ones who are determining how best to utilize the time of those IST teachers.
And so Are you tracking how many hours each student? I'm just wondering if you're planning on having an assessment at some point to say after this many hours of instruction, they've advanced.
We're not tracking the hours. We are looking at the different ways it's being delivered in different buildings. In one of our buildings, they're doing a morning group before kids start. They come in and instead of going to their classroom where they do their lunch count, they're meeting with the IST teacher and they're doing some of this. That's not possible in all of our buildings because in a number of our buildings, kids aren't arriving until like right before the bell. So it's really hard to track that because there's so much variability from building to building. But we definitely are tracking students who are starting the program. We've already had students who are exiting out. So that's a positive. At mid-year especially, seeing kids exiting out is a real positive. So we will have some hard data to see at least how many kids are starting and how many kids are able to exit.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, so this will be a motion on the next
Yes.
board agenda. Okay, thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Saleza.
you.
All right, next item is the Canvas learning management system at the middle school's proposal. Mrs. Gurish.
Good evening, everybody. What we'd like to do with the expansion of technology at the middle school, as Mrs. Miller was outlining for you earlier, we'd like to see the extension of Canvas as a unified learning management system for grades 6 through 12. We really feel that this will create a uniform platform for learning, for collaboration among teachers, for professional development as well, and really help us to make sure that there's consistent implementation of the various curriculum improvements and changes and just base curriculum that we have throughout the district 6 through 12. The proposal outlines our timeline, and you guys have it in front of you, and our costs, and we can see that really adding the middle school really is not going to be a huge burden. It would be about a $10,000 cost rounding up next year, and then continuing into subsequent years. I know that most of you are pretty familiar and have heard me speak about Canvas in the past, so I'm not sure if you have questions specifically about this proposal or would like to hear in any more detail information about the timeline.
So when we first purchased Canvas for the high school, I remember we had a contract, and the contract showed that the per user rate was increasing each year instead of going down. And part of the justification for that was, because we're going to be so much better next year, and we're going to be so much better the year after, so we're going to charge you more money next year and the following year because we're going to be worth it. And that was like a promise to us. So that's why we're paying the $637 per user. And now it looks like what they're saying to us is, well, we haven't gotten better yet, so they're delaying this like raise in price. And so now we're going to be paying $550 per user to add the middle school, and we're still paying that rate for these promised features that they increased it for under the high school contract. And so I would want to go back to them and say, listen, you were having this go up on this scale, given these promises, and I think, Kath, this is more for you, I want them to match it. I think if their price right now is $550 and we're giving them all this extra business on a continuous basis, they should be able to bring it down and match the price that we're going to be adding on for middle school, which is the $550 per user. I would go back to them and say, you had us committing to these increases based on promises, and now I want you to match what the actual price is now. If you want us to continue this partnership with you going forward, and you want us to add all of our middle schools into this as well, then I would expect that you would honor the fact that your price has actually gone down instead of going up, and have them match that for the entire contract. That would be my expectation for them. And then my second thing, I'm concerned about starting this in the middle school next year because we have all this new curriculum, and I'm just wondering, is that going to be too much for our middle school teachers that they're getting new curriculum depending on which content area they're in, and they're starting Canvas? That's a lot to take on your plate, and a lot to get yourself used to, a lot of planning. And are they really going to be able to utilize Canvas as much as you would want them to, given that they have these other expectations on their plates as well?
I'll let Kara answer that part because we've already started that. And then in terms of the cost, the reason why the cost is different wasn't because of any
I can
promises.
explain that. I
Right.
can explain the cost
Okay,
difference.
go ahead, sure.
The original contract that we had, originally Canvas had negotiated with the intermediate units and created a consortium level pricing structure for districts in Pennsylvania. As Canvas has expanded, as they have been able to kind of break into Pennsylvania and really throughout the country, they've done away with that pricing structure. So that 637 was an existing contract that we had through Bucks County IU. So that contract was set. The 550 is the new pricing structure that Canvas has implemented throughout our region. As far as getting better, some of the integrations that have developed since we first adopted Canvas that show that they are improving is their excellent integration with Office 365 and with Google Classroom, or Google Apps, I should say, not Google Classroom. Being a district that embraces both Office 365 and Google, being able to bridge both of those divide, both of those worlds with this product makes it such a wonderful product for us. We can have teachers utilize Office 365 in the class notebook. We can have teachers also utilize Google Apps to make cloud-based assessment or cloud-based assignments within Canvas. And those are two features that came since our implementation. Additionally, coming this spring, a new quiz engine is going to be generated to offer more in-depth assessment capabilities. I don't mean assessment analysis like Linkit, but I mean actual daily assessments for formative assessment will be launched. So the product is improving. The price structure is really more indicating the growth of the product, and the fact that they have been able to bring the price down as they've captured more of the market.
But wasn't the original price that increased scale? Because I remember there being an increased scale, that the price was going to go up because they said they were going to have future better features, right?
I think it was, I don't recall that was the promise why. I think it was more kind of that introductory rate and then building up to what they thought was going to be the rate that they had to have a good return on investment for themselves.
So can we go back to them and ask them to match this price that we're getting for the middle school, since that's their current per user price?
I don't think we can, because that's an established signed contract that we have through the IU. So unless there's a way to renegotiate that contract.
I mean, I would like to look into it if we could.
I'd be happy to contact the IU to see if it's possible.
And then I guess, I get what you're saying about creating all of these things, but is that going to be too much for teachers, that part of the question?
I'm sorry. I would argue that it's actually the perfect time to bring it in, because as they're learning and creating and developing their new lessons to go along with these new curriculum platforms and initiatives, they'll be able to build those lessons right within Canvas using the module structure within Canvas. They'll be able to organize their resources and share those resources between teachers as well. We have quite a few teachers. I would say the World Language Department comes to mind as the department that really does it the best and most consistently, where teachers share a class within Canvas and share resources that they've created as they implement new programs, like the new Spanish program, or I believe it's Spanish 1 and 2.
Have we gotten feedback from the high school teachers about whether they've felt like the Canvas has helped them and has been a useful tool to them?
Absolutely. At the end of last school year, I gave out a survey to the faculty, and it was overwhelmingly positive. Some of the areas that they really focused in on was the efficiency of Canvas, being able to provide those resources, whether it's a document that they're giving to the class, a link to another source, being able to efficiently share course materials with their classes, the use of SpeedGrader in terms of being able to grade work quickly and then have those grades passed back into PowerSchool is something else that they commented about a lot. They also, like I mentioned, with the Spanish department, or Spanish teachers in particular, the sharing among colleagues, the fact that they're able to share resources so well through this platform is another area of feedback that they provided.
I don't, does anybody have any other questions?
I just have a couple questions, just as a parent user. I'm wondering how many parents are using Canvas? How many parents have registered to use it?
I added it up before I came this evening. Right now, we have about 600 parent observers, so it's still a fairly low number. I think still with PowerSchool, I still feel that I feel that many parents still are relying on PowerSchool to see kind of what assignments have been turned in or not turned in. There's been outreach through communications from the high school and the grade level in order to encourage parents to create those observer accounts. We also, Canvas has kind of solidified their parent app, and that is something that I've kind of opened, but I haven't really publicized yet because I wanted to do some testing on it, and I hope we can test it by opening it in a live environment. And with that, once that gets pushed out further, I think it'll be an easier way for parents to kind of peek into Canvas. The downside of that is the way that that integration works. We wouldn't have a number of how many parents are actually utilizing the app. It doesn't really log those numbers for us, unfortunately.
So the outreach, that's just going, or you're sending emails to parents who have not registered to use it? So if a parent is registered, they wouldn't get that? Or is that going to everybody?
In just Blackboard Connect, for example, the beginning of the year information that was sent out to parents included information about creating a Canvas observer account.
Okay. Yeah, because I haven't seen, I'm a registered observer. One thing that I would say that is sometimes a problem is that when I go, I'll get the email notification and I go to click on it and then it says I don't have permission to access things.
Right.
And I think from using Schoology where I teach, it's different, it's not Canvas, but I use Schoology, but a lot of times if you put in a Google document or anything Google, right, and you have to set the permission.
Correct.
And so I'm just thinking that's probably the same thing, that only people with a Pennridge address can access it. So then as a parent, I can't see it. There are a lot of things that I can't see.
The links that come in those emails that come from Canvas are linking back to our login system, the ADFS system. Our tech people could speak more clearly or articulately about this, but it goes back to our login system. So that's a kind of a byproduct of the way we have students logging in to make it simpler and easier for them. Those links come back bad for the parents. And that is something that Mrs. Miller and I have been discussing about the possibility of looking into other login options to rectify that situation.
So you're saying it's not really that I can't see the document, it's that if I get the email on my phone and I look from my phone, I'm not,
You can't. Right, you can't go directly from that link. You'd have to go into that parent URL, log in, and then you'd be able to see the link.
and do that. Oh, okay,
Right.
yeah, so that's not very convenient the way it's set up now.
Yes. I
So
agree.
you're saying if I log into Canvas, but then I might have then I have to figure out what did I get?
Exactly.
What did they just send me?
Exactly.
So,
I
yeah.
agree with you that that is something that we are looking at improving.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I have a comment on something completely unrelated, but when I saw you here tonight, it reminded me that I saw someone, I was in a store, and we started chatting, and the woman brought up our cyber school. And she said she attended the event that you had to introduce it to people, and she was really impressed. And she was looking at moving her student back from what she was doing to possibly come to ours, and so I just wanted to pass that on. She was, kudos to you for the cyber school program.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
All right, any other comments or questions about Canvas? No, I think it's a very useful tool. I think it's great for the kids. Is there any sort of overall guidance for teachers as far as what is posted? I know one of my kids says that, they look on Canvas, and if it's not on Canvas, then they don't know, or whatever, that, that's what they're looking at as far as checking homework. So is there sort of a school-wide policy of what should be on there, as far as just big assignments, little assignments, every assignment?
The year one goals, which were continued then into the second year for Canvas for the high school, has been that all due dates are listed on the Canvas calendar. What that means, anything that a student is expected to do outside of school to prepare and bring in, whether that is a homework assignment, studying for a test or quiz coming up, all of those dates should be on the calendar. Additionally, there should be some sort of daily agenda. Today we did this in class. This year we are kind of upping our game in terms of providing resources in a more organized fashion through the use of the modules as well. The assignments, there's always kind of that question of, well, if in the end of class, if I say, oh, finish that one question for homework, does that need to be on the calendar? It's really going to be anything that you're going to then use as a grade for the student the next day or that week should be on that calendar.
Okay, great, that's helpful, thank you. All right, so this will be on the next board meeting. All right, thank you very much. All right, next item up is middle school social studies program improvement proposal. Mr. Roberka.
Good evening, everyone. In an effort to update our current resources at the middle school level and also in support of our recently redesigned curriculum, we'd like to request funding to support new materials for 6th grade, the Ancient World, and for our 7th grade course, World Geography and Culture. Both of these requests involve textbook packages, student digital bundles, which includes a print textbook as well as a 6-year digital license as well, similar to what Mr. O'Boyle was mentioning earlier about the math program. Most of your textbook companies are packaging it this way and make it economical to purchase both the textbook and the online resources. In terms of the 6th grade, total cost is $28,500, and the 7th grade is $24,600. And again, that includes a print student edition, a 6-year digital license for 250 students. So it's a classroom set. So it's not purchasing it for the entire grade level, but for a classroom set that students could use in class, both the print textbook as well as using their laptops to access the online resources. And again, as the years have gone by, the online resources have gotten much better and more interactive for the students to use that. So it's a little more than an online textbook now. It's really provides some really interactive features as well. The first selection for 6th grade is History Alive, the Ancient World, which is really an update of what we currently have. We haven't updated these resources in probably about 10 years or so at least, so it definitely offers much more for the students. And the 7th grade is World Regions, Eastern and Western Geography. Again, it's the next generation of what we currently have there from Hoffman Mifflin. And again, that would be 250 of the print and the digital for a total of $24,600. So the total expenditure would be $53,100 for new resources for 6th and 7th grade social studies. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
Do you actually have copies of these textbooks yet? Did they send you like a couple of copies?
I do have copies of History Alive, Ancient World, with the 2017. The actual World Regions is actually not published yet, so it's 2019 copyright, so it'll be probably available late spring, early summer.
So I guess if you haven't seen it yet, how do you know you're going to like it?
There's basically all of their materials follow the same format, and so they're able to show us in a digital field how that is going to look. So basically, it's the content that is going to be put in that digital platform, and so they're able to show us a similar model of what that would be. And just in terms of the World Regions, it very much emulates what we currently have. So it's an update of that current resource.
Could I borrow a copy of the one that you have in like an old version of the other one?
Oh, of course.
And then I have a kind of an outside question, but just since you're here. A parent had said to me that our history at the high school has changed, and now this parent said to me that now we're not teaching history anymore except for the last 20 years, that we cut out the rest of history and we're changing all of history. So could you explain to me what
I don't think we have the authority to change all of history. Essentially, what we've done is, in terms of a 6 through 12 curriculum redesign last year, again, starting through making adjustments to some of our curriculum templates in terms of what was happening. Basically, what we did was our 9th and 10th grade courses were 19th century American history and 20th century American history. And obviously, we're 18 years into our 21st century, and so we actually just adjusted the name and moved some of the material. So some of it was moved down to 8th grade, and so now we actually start 9th grade with the Jefferson age. And so we basically have taken the 19th century away, and we are looking at Jefferson up through the progressive era at the turn of the century. And then our 10th grade course has become modern American history, which takes a look at World War I up through the modern day, so present day, because we were basically not quite getting to the present day in 10th grade. So we just made some adjustments there to ensure that we actually make it up to the present.
So you're still covering all of history?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Baberka, can you give me insight on the final sentence in your document that you sent to us, talking about this partnership with history, the capitalized and registered trademark organization? What is that?
That's actually the current trademark for History Channel, as you would know, History Channel. So essentially, now the history encompasses their educational component, and that's what I was talking about here. That's the great thing about it, because literally now, instead of an online text, it literally will take History Channel documentaries and clips of History Channel programs and embed those within the online resources. So it really is a pretty rich and robust online set of resources.
So if it has the History Channel, if it embeds a document, so I'm assuming it only would embed things that are, nonfiction? Because like that Sons of the Revolution series, which was entertaining, but a lot of it was not, right? So if it's going to be embedded as part of this textbook, is it going to be the...
Right, that's a very good point. Ice truck drivers, things like that, it's not being part of what we do here. It'll just be the nonfiction. Even though it's a great, no.
I have a question about, you said, so if you just have a classroom set of books and online resources so the kids can't access anything at home, or can you talk to what will happen with that?
Well, and that's one of the decisions we had to make too, because there is an option to purchase it for every student. And we just thought that in terms of the cost, to cut the cost, but still be able to have access to the resource, we would start here. And perhaps in the future, if we thought that the resources were good enough that we could use them at home, and we want the students to use them at home as well, with those laptops, we might come back for funding later on. But at this point, I think classroom sets would be enough, especially with the use of laptops in the classroom and use of the textbooks there, to at least start the program and ensure that it's something that is really beneficial for the students.
All right, any other comments or questions? Okay, so this will be a motion. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next agenda item is K-5 library science proposal. Mrs. Sterling.
Good evening. We're here because libraries in the 21st century have become more important than ever before. I hear Mr. Baverka talk about how we're going to cover content, and it's true. As more and more history gets made, how do you cover content? And therefore, the skills that we're really looking at as we move into the 21st century and beyond is, how do we find what we need, when we need it, and how do we know that it's good? And that's what librarians do. In 2009, we went from 7 librarians serving 7 elementary schools to 6, and several years later, we went down to 5. So currently, we have 5 librarians covering 7 schools, and it has created a situation where we have rooms full of assets, between 10 and 16,000 assets in each library that are closed to staff and students between 1 to 2 days a week. We have a situation where our librarians are teaching students so many sections that there isn't time to do some of the other things that librarians do so incredibly well. And those are things like working with teachers on research skills and how to incorporate process into content. And so what we are looking for is a way to reinstitute those 2 positions in our elementary schools so that we have 1 librarian serving each of the 7 elementary schools, which would give us an opportunity to have some flexible time in our schedule to work with teachers, to do more staff development, professional development, have more time for actually curating materials, have more time for teaching students and staff how to use online subscription databases, how to evaluate websites, how to differentiate between useful information and not useful information. So it's all of those kinds of things that we've lost and we haven't really been able to expand upon that we're hoping we're able to regain moving forward. In addition to the 2 positions, the proposal also includes a request for some dedicated technology in the libraries. Right now, if a librarian is teaching a class where they would like technology, and I can attest that my 6th grade curriculum, I reserve technology for every single class I teach. In the elementary school, if you want technology for your lesson, if you're teaching 3rd grade, you have to request from the 3rd grade team that they bring that cart down to teach that lesson. And then as your 3rd graders leave and your 4th graders move in, you have to request for the 4th grade cart to come in. We're asking for some dedicated technology, a class set in each of the libraries so that we can deliver curriculum and have the tools that we need to do that effectively. In addition, we have actually already begun. We started in the spring of last year taking a really close look at our curriculum. The American Association of School Librarians came out with a new set of standards in November. Librarians cover standards. We help augment the standards, some of the ELA standards, some of the social studies standards, some of the science standards. And now we've got a framework to do that within. So we are looking to rewrite the library curriculum to address all those things so that we're certain that we have a progression of skills from K to 5 that our middle school, which will follow up and rewrite their curriculum based on the outcome of the elementary curriculum. We want to make sure that we're horizontally and vertically articulated in all of the schools. So I think you've got the justification in the proposal, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay.
Digital citizenship, do you have anything to add? Okay.
If you wouldn't mind, add that piece because it really
Yeah,
is.
there is one piece that, especially because we're down to 5 and 7, we were unable to bring into our curriculum. 2 years ago, Kara came to me and asked me about teaching digital citizenship in the elementary school, and I told her that there's no room to put it in. There's no place in what we do, and yet I believe that that's where it belongs. So one of the things that we are doing in conjunction with the elementary scheduling team, Aaron Reichert's been giving us a hand, and we have a group of librarians that have taken apart all of the objectives that the digital literacy curriculum constructed 2 years ago so that we can make sure that we can incorporate those, and we will be able to tell you when they're introduced, when they're reinforced, when we expect mastery, and we can collaborate with the classroom teacher on those skills as well so they know what to expect in their classrooms.
Can I just add something? And then in addition to that, what we were looking at is not just digital citizenship, but the elementary computer education curriculum.
Right.
And seeing which parts of that our librarians could teach. And the classroom teacher would not have that sole responsibility
Right.
anymore. Excuse me. Sorry about that. thereby leaving time in the elementary schedule for us as the elementary scheduling committee, that, you know, we have been meeting to explore other options for time in that period. So basically, the elementary teachers right now have a period that they have to, that they do teach the elementary computer aided curriculum. If that, to some degree, moves to the librarians, if we had a librarian in every building, that will free up some time for us to, and we are exploring other options like world language or STEM.